Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are definitely not just scratching the surface.
No, we're not.
We're peeling back the layers of a topic that, well, it's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. But honestly, it might just be the most important conversation you hear this year.
It is a heavy one today. We are diving into a really intense ebook.
Yeah, we're looking at a forensic dissection of Western decline, specifically through the lens of the modern male experience.
Right. We're looking at the book Strong Men, Good Times, Strong Women, Bad Times by Conrad Riker. And I have to say right off the bat, this is not your standard self-help manual.
Not at all.
Like, it's not telling you to go make your bed or stand up straight. Riker actually frames this entire thing as a counteroffensive.
Exactly. The premise here is highly provocative.
Yeah.
Riker argues that men aren't just failing by accident or because of economic shifts. He claims men are being systematically erased.
Neutered.
Yeah, neutered and pathologized by a very specific design. A design that he says is now totally woven into the fabric of our modern institutions.
It's a really bold thesis. He essentially argues that the world hasn't just changed, it has completely inverted.
Right.
What was once considered strength is now treated as a pathology, and what was once just basic discipline is now viewed as repression.
And before we get too deep into that inversion, I want to jump in and remind everyone listening, if you enjoy these deep dives where we tackle the hard stuff, the stuff you aren't really supposed to talk about at the dinner table, please hit that like and subscribe button right now.
Yeah, it really helps us keep the lights on and keep bringing you these ultra-long, incisive analyses.
Please do. And honestly, if what we talk about today resonates with you, you are going to want to go straight to Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books and buy this ebook immediately.
You really need to.
Riker's arguments are super dense, and they're heavily cited. We can only cover so much ground in one show, so you really need the full arsenal to understand what's happening.
Absolutely. Go grab it on Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books.
Okay, so let's unpack this inversion concept. Where exactly does Riker start his argument?
He starts with what he diagnoses as institutional capture. He basically argues that if you feel like the world has turned against you as a man, you aren't crazy.
Right.
He describes modern leftism not as a political ideology, but as a psychological parasite.
A parasite. I mean, that is incredibly strong language.
It is, but he breaks it down biologically. He claims this parasite works by splitting the world into two distinct groups, infants and predators.
Okay, break that down for us.
So infants are those who need to be coddled, protected, given everything without question. And in this framework, he argues that role has become the default for women and certain protected groups.
And the predators.
The predators are men, full stop.
So in this worldview, according to the book, a man isn't a builder or a provider or a protector anymore. He's just a threat.
Exactly. Men are the things that the infants need to be protected from, so therefore men must be punished, silenced, and eventually erased.
Wow.
The function of the institution shifts completely. It goes from achieving excellence to simply restraining the predator.
And the mechanism for this, according to Riker, is the feminization of institutions. We are talking about HR departments, universities, corporate boardrooms. He argues the goal of these institutions is no longer productivity at all. It's the obsolescence of men.
He gives some very specific and, frankly, almost hard to believe examples of this to prove his point. The story about the software engineer really illustrates this shift.
Oh, the scalability incident.
Yeah.
I had to read that section 3 times.
It's wild. So you have a top-performing software engineer, right? He is reviewing code with a female colleague, and he tells her directly that her idea isn't scalable.
Just a factual statement about the code.
Exactly. He's not being mean. He's not attacking her character. He is talking purely about the architecture. It won't handle the user load. It's a technical fact.
And what happens next?
She cries.
Right.
Now, Riker points out that in a traditional meritocratic environment, what he calls a male environment, the response would just be, okay, stop crying and fix the code.
Because the code is what matters.
Right. But in the captured institution, those tears reframe the entire interaction. The engineer isn't offering a technical critique anymore. He is committing an act of violence against an infant.
And the result of that interaction.
He gets fired
Fired.
for lacking emotional intelligence. And she actually gets promoted. Riker uses that specific anecdote to illustrate how tears have become a currency that completely outvalues logic in the modern workplace.
But it gets even more extreme than that. He cites a case at Stanford University, a Title IX complaint.
Oh yeah, this one made my jaw drop. It feels like absolute satire, but he cites the actual case number in the book.
Right, a female student filed a formal complaint. because her male classmate, and I'm quoting here, breathed too loudly during lectures.
You have to be kidding. Breathing.
Breathing. She formally claimed his breathing was an act of aggression that made her feel unsafe.
And let me guess, the university didn't just laugh it out of the room.
They didn't tell her to grow up at all. They launched a formal investigation. The man was actually forced into sensitivity training.
That is just profound. Riker points to this as absolute proof that the system isn't seeking equality. It's seeking purification.
Precisely. It's an effort to eliminate male presence entirely, starting with the mind and ending with basic biological functions. Like if your very existence, your breath is considered aggression, you have no place in that institution.
It sounds like he's describing a hostile takeover of reality itself. But what is driving this, according to him? Is it just politics? Just people wanting power?
Riker says no, it goes way deeper than politics. He argues it is biological programming. And this is where we get into the hive mind concept.
Right, the gossip network. This was a fascinating section on neurology.
He references a 2021 fMRI study by a researcher named Robert Hazeltine. The study claims that women's brains actually synchronize in group settings. Their neural activity aligns.
That's incredible.
And Riker contrasts this with men who tend to debate, challenge each other, and individuate.
Yeah.
He argues that women are neurologically optimized for collective agreement.
So when you see a group of people all shouting the exact same slogan or piling onto a guy on social media or just generally acting like a swarm, he's saying that's not a coincidence.
Exactly. He calls it the gossip network. And he describes it as a distributed immune system. Its entire function is to identify and destroy male outliers.
Meaning men who are independent or confident or non-compliant.
Yes. He throws out a pretty staggering stat here, too. He claims that women use 2.3 times more social referential language than men.
And that 80% of gossip is negative or punitive. He argues that in ancestral environments, this was how women controlled behavior in the village.
And now it's been industrialized.
Right. It's moved from the village square to the HR department, to Twitter, to the mainstream media.
And this connects directly to the believe all women dynamic, doesn't it?
It does. Riker interprets believe all women not as a legal standard, but as a tribal war cry.
A work.
Yeah, he argues that in the hive mind, evidence is actually an obstacle. Evidence requires individual processing. You have to stop and think for yourself, is this true? But belief requires submission to the group.
So when facts contradict the narrative, the facts are just discarded. Because maintaining the consensus that emotional validation of the group is the ultimate biological priority.
Exactly. That is why logic often feels completely useless in these arguments. You aren't arguing against a person, you're arguing against a biological imperative for consensus.
That is terrifying, actually. But Riker suggests this imperative is being used to conduct a massive form of social engineering.
Yeah.
Specifically through fertility suppression.
Yeah, we need to touch on this because the chapter on abortion was very heavy. He mentions a staggering number. 1 billion babies aborted globally since 1980.
It's a massive figure.
Yeah.
But Riker's analysis of why this is happening is what really separates this book from others.
Right, because he doesn't frame it just as a tragedy or a reproductive choice or an economic issue. He explicitly calls it a mate selection tool.
Okay, explain that. The standard argument we always hear is that abortion is driven by poverty or lack of resources.
Riker argues that in the West, it is often driven by a refusal to accept the genetic material of beta males.
Beta males?
Yes, it's a way to erase male lineage and legacy. He argues it is the ultimate biological veto, deleting the offspring of men who are deemed useful for providing resources, but unworthy of actually leaving a legacy.
And he ties this into what he calls emotional dominance. It seems like, according to the text, the modern woman has been trained to use emotion as a weapon to subvert male logic at every single turn.
This is his emotional dominance playbook. We talked about the software engineer earlier, but Riker goes way deeper into the weaponization of emotion. He says tears are performance.
That's a quote that really stuck with me. The moment a woman cries in a professional setting, logic ends and empathy begins.
And empathy in this specific context is just code for submission. You are expected to stop your logical argument immediately and tend to her feelings. And Riker points to the legal system to show just how effective this playbook is. He cites a deposition from a senior Texas judge.
The domestic violence statistics.
Yes. This judge admitted on the record that 90% of domestic violence injunctions filed in his court had absolutely no evidence.
None.
No medical records, no police reports, no witnesses, just the allegation alone. Yet 85% of them were granted.
So an allegation is essentially a conviction.
In the eyes of a captured institution, yes. The feeling of fear or distress is treated as literal evidence of a crime. Riker calls this emotional warfare with a government stamp.
If she feels unsafe, you are dangerous.
Truth is completely irrelevant.
Feels like the walls are closing in from every side. Legal, professional, biological. But what about the guys who just want to keep their heads down? The guys who are just trying to be normal?
Riker argues that normal is exactly what is being targeted right now, and this brings us to the medicalization of masculinity.
The mental health hoax.
Right. He argues the entire mental health industry has been designed to pathologize perfectly normal male traits.
Stoicism, high energy, risk-taking independence.
All of those. They are now treated as symptoms of a psychological disorder.
I saw the stat from the CDC that he mentions in the book, that 80% of antidepressants prescribed to men specifically target traits like independence and focus.
He calls it the chemical neutering of the male drive. I mean, think about a standard classroom. You have a young boy who wants to run and climb and take risks and compete.
The exact traits that built the skyscrapers and bridges of the West.
Exactly. But in a classroom led by that infant-predator dynamic, that boy is a disruption. He is a predator in training.
So he immediately gets an ADHD diagnosis.
And he is drugged into compliance. There was that crazy anecdote about the Kentucky teacher.
Right. She told the author, straight up, boys don't need to be tough. They need to be emotionally available.
Riker points out that this is literally training boys to be women. It's outlawing boyhood entirely. And if you outlaw boyhood, you don't get men.
You get infants.
Yes, you get what Riker calls infants. Men who are completely dependent on the system, dependent on validation, and totally incapable of the kind of disruptive creation that build Western civilization.
Which leads us directly to the cultural battleground, because it's not just about pills and HR meetings. It is about how we fundamentally think. Riker talks about the destruction of the trivium.
A trivium. Logic, grammar, rhetoric. These were the absolute foundational pillars of Western education for centuries. They represent order, structure, and truth.
And Riker argues these are being dismantled because they are inherently male modes of thought.
Because they are hierarchical exactly. Logic demands that there is a right answer and a wrong answer. It cuts straight through emotion. Riker says we are replacing the trivium with the vibe.
The vibe.
We're replacing objective truth with lived experience. If a fact hurts someone's feelings, the fact is now considered violence.
This perfectly explains why we see the Western canon being shredded in universities. It's not just because the authors are dead white men, is it?
No. Riker argues it's because they represent a hierarchy of competence. Homer, Plato, Newton. They were objectively better at what they did than others.
Right.
And the hive mind hates hierarchy unless it's based on victimhood. So to establish the new order, you have to erase the blueprint of the old order.
You remove the great men of history so that young men today have absolutely no models of greatness to aspire to.
Exactly. And the language itself is being actively sabotaged to support this. I loved his section on the passive voice.
Oh, mistakes were made.
Exactly. Mistakes were made, not I made a mistake.
Riker calls this linguistic sabotage.
It's a grammar of evasion. It allows the collective to completely avoid accountability. Harm occurred. Unsafe feelings were created. It never, ever specifies who is responsible.
And Riker argues that the active voice saying I did this is inherently male because it claims agency. And agency is the exact thing the system wants to strip from you.
Okay, so the diagnosis here is incredibly grim. Institutions are captured, biology is weaponized, and the language itself is rigged. If you're a listener right now and you're feeling the weight of this, you're probably asking, what do I do? Does Riker offer a way out?
He does. And his solution is not to beg for inclusion. It's not to go to HR and ask for the rules to be fair. It's to reject the frame entirely.
A counterattack.
The first step is what he calls the male renaissance. And it starts simply by stopping the apologies. Riker says that what society labels toxic masculinity is actually just discipline, responsibility, and truth-telling.
And men need to stop apologizing for those things.
Absolutely. And practically speaking, he talks about opting out.
The no women, no problem strategy. Now, Riker insists this isn't about hating women personally. It's strictly about risk management.
Right.
It's about avoiding the inefficiency and the extreme legal risk of those captured environments.
He cites a fascinating study from Harvard about construction crews to prove this exact point.
This was a brilliant data point. The study looked at 312 construction crews. It found that the all-male teams were 19% faster.
Which is expected.
Right, but here's the kicker. They had 31% fewer safety incidents.
Wait, fewer. We are always told that men are reckless cowboys who need constant supervision.
Riker argues that men communicate directly. You messed up, fix it. There is no emotional labor involved. There's no 20-minute debrief about how the criticism landed.
Direct communication leads to clarity, and clarity leads to safety.
Exactly. The mixed crews, or the female-led crews, got completely bogged down in what he calls passive-aggressive relationship monitoring.
So the strategy for men today is to build your own networks where that direct objective communication is actually allowed.
Exactly. We are seeing the rise of encrypted channels, private forums, signal groups. Riker describes an underground male network that is already forming right now.
They're sharing real salary data to fight the pay gap.
The real pay gap, the one where men are underpaid because they don't know what the other guys are making.
Right, and they're funding legal defense funds for men who are falsely accused by HR or Title IX boards.
It's essentially a parallel society.
It has to be. If the main institutions are hostile, you just build new ones in the dark.
Riker frames the red pill pipeline not as radicalization by rage, which is what the mainstream media always calls it, but as education by data.
Men aren't angry, they are just observant.
Yes. They are looking at the stats we've discussed today. The divorce courts, the HR firing rates the suicide numbers. And they are making a rational, calculated choice to exit the burning building.
It's a very powerful image. Men quietly walking out the back door of a society that openly despises them to go build something else in the garage.
And that is really the core message of the entire book. It's a full-scale demolition of lies. A call to arms, but not for violence. It's a call to reclaim agency.
Riker says the West is dying, but it can be reborn.
But there's a strict condition for that rebirth.
There is. He writes that it can only be reborn by strong, clear-eyed men who value truth above comfort.
That is the condition. If you prioritize your comfort, your corporate job security, your social standing, your easy life, you will be consumed by the parasite.
But if you prioritize truth, you might lose those external things, but you regain your soul.
Truth above comfort. That is the ultimate challenge.
It is. And if you are listening to this and you want to accept that challenge, you need to arm yourself. You really need to read this book.
Go to Amazon Kindle right now. Go to Google Play Books and get Strong Men, Good Times, Strong Women, Bad Times.
It is an ultra-long, incisive read that lays out all the forensic data we've really only just touched on here.
And don't just read the book. The conversation is actively continuing. You can and should follow the author at Conrad Riker on Substack.
That is at Conrad Riker on Substack. That's where the ongoing conversation is happening and where he's releasing all his new data.
Absolutely. The Substack is essential. It's where that underground network we talked about is actually visible.
Now, before we sign off, here's a final thought for you to mull over. We talked about the removal of the Western canon, Homer, Newton, the greats, right? If these men are erased from history strictly because they represent a hierarchy of competence, what happens to a civilization that no longer has a blueprint for greatness? Are we just destined to manage our own decline, or is there a way to build a completely new canon from the ashes?
That is the question, and the answer depends entirely on what you do next.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. Make sure you like and subscribe to support this kind of independent analysis. We'll see you in the next one.
Stay dangerous.